Konnichiwa, everyone. Welcome back to our regular show. We'll be doing every Saturday, and we do it every Saturday an hour talking about haunted things in Japan. So definitely join us for that. But we also want to point out that please check out go follow our regular page for the podcast, the Spooky Japan podcast, the Facebook page, because that's where we go with our guests. So if you want to watch our shows with our guests, definitely go there because we have some great guests coming up. We're still scheduling for some guests. So definitely check that out if you want to see anything with our guests, more of the show. We would love to have you on there. So definitely do that. Also, if you want to be a guest on our show and talk to us, let us know. Message the page so we can get you scheduled, or email us at spookyjapanpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know who you are and what do you do in the paranormal. We'd love to have anyone in paranormal come on our show. So definitely do that because we would, like I said, Irene and I would love to talk to anyone in the paranormal field. So definitely let us know who you are. We'd love to have more people come on.
Most definitely.
So today we're going to be talking about haunted dolls in Japan. And Irene can actually go over more of the superstitions that comes with dolls in Japan.
hmm
Because there's a bunch of them, and it's always interesting to hear.
Um, there's one rule with dolls. If you're gonna give a doll to your child, or if you're gonna give a doll to your sibling, always get a doll that's smaller than your sibling. They have Ichimatsu dolls means that they're tall, they're big, and they can be smaller. They can be really huge too, and they all wear kimono, and they all have painted faces, and they're usually made by people who are generation back doll makers. But there's the thing about them: people who make dolls cannot have children. They're infertile, and we don't know why. It's an urban legend. I don't know. It's just something about doll makers that they cannot have children. Um, is it a urban legend? Is it something about them that has this problems with being infertile? We don't know, but they say dolls have a soul. Yes, they do. Some of the people who make them, some of the people who have souls, their 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 bodies, and the people who make their clothes, and the people who paint their face. Um, there is a thing about dolls that they can, if you leave them from generation to generation, they can be haunted. Yes, they can be. Um, for the people who passed, who had them in the past, who died. Um, there are a lot of really old urban legends about certain dolls and certain aspects about them, and that's why people find some dolls creepy or haunted. But yeah, that's about everything that we have about them. Um, is there anything else? Um, and if you do buy a doll for your child, make sure that the doll is smaller than your child. Because if it isn't, it'll take on the 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 life of the child. So the child could die, and the doll becomes a child, which is a lot happens a lot of times in this country.
Yeah, so like she was saying, most dolls here in Japan, they are handmade. The majority of dolls I've seen, probably because of that superstition, they're not very big. The ones I'm able to buy here, at least,
Yeah,
that big, because it's smaller, definitely smaller for that reason. So if you have like a baby in the house, you don't have to worry about that baby. As she said, if it's the same size as your child, if it's the same size as your child or
bigger.
bigger. It's gonna take over its soul.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's why um, you always make sure that this doesn't happen. A lot of times in North America, they don't have that theory, but come to think of it, that has happened in North America a lot of times, right? Where
Yeah, there's a few
people
haunted dolls in
yeah,
North.
people buy their kids a doll, and the child dies of whatever. It can be like healthy today, dead tomorrow, right? Right? Or a fever and so bad that the child can't come out of it and live another day. So yeah, that has happened. All of a sudden, the item that the child had becomes haunted. Okay, and yeah, the child spirit is in the doll, and I had several cases with that too, where I do haunted dolls. I do read haunted dolls. I do talk to haunted dolls, and yeah, there's one case that I had where a child who had a fever, and it was in the 1800 in North America, and she was really sick, and she had extremely high fever, and the mother was trying to help the daughter with cold compresses, and she told the older daughter to go and fetch the doctor. And then by the time the older daughter went to fetch the daughter died. And there's this particular special doll that this daughter liked, and the daughter really loved this particular doll, and the doll gained the daughter's spirit. So now the daughter is in that particular beautiful China doll. So yeah, it has happened, and quite a few cases that I have had has that happened to them, and it does exist.
Yeah, definitely. It's just a lot of dolls. Just I don't. For some odd reason, I feel like a lot of spirits just want to go in them. Like everyone's heard of the ones in America, like
Yeah.
Robert the doll or Annabelle. So those are definitely some of the most famous ones
Hmm.
people would know about.
Yeah. And Annabelle doll, that doll was pretty big too, right?
It's a Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah. And it was a huge Raggedy Ann doll too. So yeah, that's why I always suggest, I want to get my daughter a doll. Well, how big is your daughter? And they say, does it matter? Yes, it does matter. Well, always get a smaller doll for your daughter. Don't get a bigger doll for your daughter. And I always, even with my daughter, she's like this Meru. It's called Meru-chan. And she like that Japanese doll, and you could dress it up. It's like it's bigger than Barbie, but it's just a regular Japanese doll that you can play with. And I always made sure it was smaller than her, and she still has that doll, believe me. And she keeps it in her drawers in her room. Yeah, so she doesn't bring it out. But yeah, um, it's not going to deter a child from having a doll. They say, no, you can't have a doll because it could be haunted. Well, that's not a good answer either. Um, you just try to play it safe, okay?
Yeah, they
And if
say, and
and if the doll's haunted, don't throw it in the garbage because no, that's not gonna work either.
yeah, someone said Annabelle is 3 feet tall. Yeah, I knew she was, a
Hmm.
good size. I couldn't think of how big she is, so thank you for that. Because I can
Yeah,
picture her, because I've seen pictures of her, obviously, in that in
yeah,
the Warren museums. I've seen those pictures.
yeah. And you know, dolls have a soul in itself. Okay, so you treat it with respect, it'll respect you back. You treat it with shame, it'll shame you back. Um, from the person who made that doll, if it was handmade or if it was made in a factory, it's still made, and it still has a soul. So yeah, I mean, treat them with respect. Don't do anything stupid to them. Like, even with stuffed animals, I always tell my children, treat your stuffed animals with respect, because they all have a soul.
Yeah.
It freaks them out. They don't want to know about it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, be kind and love your stuffed animals. Don't put them in a box and put plastic bags over them, and because
No.
they don't like that either. You know.
No. That's the only thing could really anger them. I had a haunted porcelain doll when I grew up. I don't know what happened to it. It's one of those things where I wish I had this when I
Mm,
knew more about the paranormal. This is before I really started learning about the paranormal. Because
yeah.
looking back then, it freaks me out because I didn't know what to do. But now I just like, now that I know more, I
Yeah.
really wish I could go back and help. I really wish I could go back in time and help younger me. Like now it's
Well,
okay. It's what you need to do. Unfortunately, that was a lot of things though with because I had one porcelain doll. I thought it was so beautiful and I loved it and I wanted to collect more. So then
mm,
I was gifted a second porcelain doll, and
mm,
that one was haunted.
mm,
I always had to hide it into another room just because you could
mm,
feel it like watch you, and it was so uneasy.
mm-hmm. And they do come out of their vessels too, and they
Yeah.
do come with your room or whatever. Um, a lot of them, the ones I talk to, I usually bind them so that they won't do anything naughty, or they won't do anything that you don't want them to do. It's it's just means of making sure that you're the boss, and the doll just listens to you, as a spirit would listen to you. Because they can be mischievous. I mean, a lot of them won't have positive energy. I only have saw one doll that had a negative energy, and that's really rare. And it does happen, but it's not as common as you think it is. So yeah, not all dolls are have bad energy to it.
Your cat always likes to be involved in our podcasts.
But it here, there you go. Yeah, anything haunted, my cat likes. He wants to be involved.
Yeah, the cat's basically a third person in the in the podcast because the cat's always putting its face in the camera and
Yeah.
putting putting their 2 cents in with the meows, what they think. I wish I could speak cat to know what she has to say in Haunted Dolls or anything we're talking
Or
about.
haunted. He'll
Yeah,
come. Yeah, I want to be part of this too.
definitely, yes. Yeah, so going back to what Irene was saying earlier about dolls, most dolls here are handmade, like we said before. So they believe part of the soul of the person making them goes into them, and that's why, as she said, it's a superstition here in Japan that if you make a doll, if a woman makes a doll, they're unable to bear their own children. Why that is, no one fully knows.
It's just an old legend, and yeah, it's really difficult to even wonder that, because usually making dolls goes by generation. It's a handed down craft by these parents and their parents and their children and their children and their children. It's like it's an old craft that's kind of like wearing out, because dolls can be manufactured cheaply in factories now, right? And by overseas, everywhere else can make them, right? But
I,
eh, the really expensive ones, like we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of dollars to even buy one doll.
yeah,
And
I
yeah,
have not yet seen a menu, and maybe this is just part of Japan. I always say this because I'm more in the southern part of Japan, and Irene is more in the middle part of Japan. I'm in the what they call the urban or country part of Japan. Well,
yeah.
yeah, country part of Japan. It's small. It's a smaller area. Irene is in Tokyo, so I mean, y'all can imagine how big Tokyo is population wise.
Yeah.
But the dolls here, I have not seen one that's not been handmade yet.
Well, you know, on March the 3rd they have Girls' Day, right?
Yeah,
Those dolls that like the king and queen and their servants and the music players, those are all handmade. So yeah, their faces are painted, the hair is brushed and combed, and they're put in a particular setting. Those are all handmade. And Joel, one of those, yeah, you'd have to have like 2000, like a couple grand plus, depending on how big you want yours. And pretty soon Children's Day is coming up,
yeah,
and they have the little boy. His name would be Tuttle, and yeah, they can get a big one. They can get big too with the boys setting up, and he's got his armor, like going to war armor, and he's got his I don't know what you call it. It's almost like a staff, and he's got his bow and arrows in the back of his on his shoulder. Yeah, they have those, and they're pretty expensive too. In fact, I have one of those for my son. They're about 20 grand to purchase one, and they're hand painted, and their clothes are their kimonos all hand painted, and they're made out of silk too. So
yeah,
um, it's just you, you know, you want to get one for your child, and you get one for the boy, and you get one for the girl, and you display it. The reason why we display them is so that children wouldn't be sick, and they'd live a longer time. That's why they created Boys' Day and Girls' Day. That's why they have those dolls that come out every year, and you bring it out every March for the girl, and you bring it out every every year in May for the boys, so they won't get sick, and they'll keep a healthy body and healthy life. Yeah, so it's a lot of it is urban legend and believing, and when you bring out your dolls and when you display them, and then you put them away right away afterwards when you're finished with that. Um, those are the ones that we do that on our celebrations, but there's others that are just toys or whatever. Yeah. And there are porcelain ones too, and there are with ceramic dolls also that we have too that you could keep displayed in your china cabinet. But those could also have a spirit also in them too, so you always have to make sure that you check your energy when you buy one and where you buy it.
yeah.
That we don't have antique shops here for that same reason,
See one, yeah, you're right.
and or they don't have garage sales either. If you notice that, have you noticed that we don't have garage sales either?
Yeah,
Because yeah, something that somebody else owns, like jewelry and stuff like that, it could be haunted. So you don't own anything. You don't want to buy anything that belongs to somebody else, or you don't sell it that belong to your family. You give it to your
yeah,
daughter, your son.
passed down. Yeah. Do you know what the hair on the homemade dolls? Is it real hair or is it?
Some of them are some of them are real hair. It's very rare to find a doll that has really a real hair to it. Um, but Some of them are, some of them aren't, depending on how old it is. The older ones do have real hair. The newer ones have synthetic hair. So yeah, if it's really old, like maybe around the 50s, 40s or 50s year, then they used to have real hair. But nowadays it's mostly synthetic hair. And that's really hard to find too. Um, the doll that we were kind of like hitting on was Okiku. Her it's a haunted doll in Japan. It's very famous. Um, she died. Her brother went on a vacation spot. He bought the doll for her for for his sister, and he was the older boy. I think he was maybe about 20 years old or something like that. And he really loved his sister, and he bought the doll for his sister, and he gave it to her, and she really loved the doll, and she couldn't part with it. And, depending on which legend that you read, said that she died of whatever, but she
Yeah.
did die, and her spirit is in the doll, which I'm not. Um, you know, I'm not surprised, right? And people usually take the dolls to Buddhist temple, so there are a lot of Buddhist temples in and around Tokyo that have haunted dolls outside. Some of the more bigger haunted dolls are usually kept inside with the Buddhist priests in cover, undercover, or in a shelf or in a glass case to prevent the doll from doing anything, to prevent the spirit from coming out of the doll. But that that doesn't work, because any spirit can come out of any vessel. They can come out of any containment if they want to, and that just you can't really contain a spirit, really. So yeah, and tell us about what you've read.
So as I always tell people how I started learning stuff here is so when I first came to Japan before me and Irene really knew each other is I started doing Bella Spooky Tales on TikTok to kind of start sharing, hopefully reaching out to people in Japan. Hopefully they would see it and other people in Japan in the paranormal come forward and I can meet them. Luckily, I met Irene that way too through social media, going through social media Japan, anything paranormal Japan. I found her, but it's Bella Spooky Tales, which started off with me educating people about haunted places or urban legends in Japan. Then I started branching out to different places around the world too, but talking about haunted places to kind of also reach out to other people in the paranormal, make more friends. But I still always circle back to things in Japan. And the Okiku haunted doll was one of the earlier ones that I actually spoke on, and I actually have some of my notes from when I talked about her. But in 1918, a 17-year-old boy bought the doll for his 2-year-old sister named Okiku. Okiku treated this doll like her best friend. So she always had this doll that was her best friend. They were inseparable. Unfortunately, Okiku died, they said either by yellow fever or malaria, holding the doll firmly. She unfortunately died, gasping for air, in pain and afraid. And according to Irene, you said it was probably yellow fever because malaria wasn't really a virus here in Japan.
No.
So when she passed away, as Irene can tell you, that most families will have like a shrine in their house dedicated to their deceased family members,
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted to put the doll in the grave with her, but due to rules here, or due to laws here in Japan, they couldn't. So they kept the doll in the family shrine dedicated to her. And then they would notice, so when they first had the doll, her hair was at shoulder length, but then they would kind of notice that the doll's hair got longer. Then one day they just, like I said, it was shoulder length, and then one day they saw it, and the hair was past her waist. So there was definitely a lot of growth there in hair. And they said, and the family would always say would be flickering, strange noises and banging would start happening either near their daughter's birthday or near the anniversary of her death. So those 2 days, all of a sudden, that's when they would start getting the paranormal activity, and they believed it was from the doll.
Mhm. A lot of times those dolls get their hair gets all messy, right?
Yeah,
Like
they said it. Yeah, they said it was mangled at the time too. The hair was
all
past the waist and mangled.
yeah, and yeah, and that's when you first notice, I wonder what's wrong with this doll, right?
Yeah, that's definitely the first indicator when they saw so much hair length. But yes, on her birthday and anniversary of her death day is when all of a sudden they'd have a lot of paranormal activity going on in the house. Yeah, hi Dawn, and also Josh said she was frustrated she wasn't buried with the doll. Possibly, I don't know if she was frustrated with the doll. Do you think she was frustrated that she wasn't buried with the body, or if it's one of those things where the doll was just making itself known that it was still a presence in the house?
You know what? I don't know where that rule came from because um as of today, you are the people bring their like glasses that they used to wear, certain things that the precious articles that they have, they did bury it with the loved one, and it does have it was allowed. I don't know why that doll wasn't allowed to be buried with it. I don't get it, but as a rule, you do give the articles that belongs to that person, like their doll or whatever, or something that they really loved, that they held on to. It is allowed to do that, and I don't know what kind of rule that was. I don't know when that rule is made, but yeah, I mean, as of today, you're allowed to bury a loved one with this precious articles that they have. And if it's child, it's their doll. Or if it's something porcelain, it belongs with that person who died. Even adults, if they find that they had a particular article that they loved, they before going to the crematorium, you always put that in their casket with them so they can have that in the afterlife. So that doesn't make sense. I just don't know where that rule came from. I don't know if it's from that era. I don't know if it's from
It
that.
might have been that area because that's what they were saying is
Yeah,
the laws at the time prevented them from having
yeah,
that doll buried. But it's one of those things because it like she treated like her best friend, so there's no way the family wanted if they couldn't bury it with her, they're like, we can't just get rid of it, and that's why they kept it in her
yeah,
shrine.
yeah. That doesn't make sense. I just don't understand that. But yeah, because nowadays you're allowed to bring them with you in the afterlife. You're allowed to have them with you when you die. And that's why I have a special doll that I have, that when I pass, I'll take that with me in the afterlife. Yes. Um, I don't know if it was an old rule. I don't know if it was the rule of that city, of that what you call state. Yeah, prefecture we call it in Japan. it's really weird to even think of that, right? Because they don't really, because they do practice carrying it with you after the afterlife. Glasses, particular clothing article that you have, yeah, stuff like that. You do take it with you, and you're allowed to bring it with you. That's kind of weird, coming to think of it, because nowadays you go, yeah, I don't understand that. But tell us what happens to her. It's not just her hair now, right?
No, so going more into it, they said like going back to what I was saying, they said her birthday and the anniversary day she died, they always had the paranormal activity from her. So it's either her, letting them know she's still there, or even another. And they never actually they named it Okiku, the doll, just because of the little girl it belonged to is named Okiku. Is that actually her spirit? I don't actually know. They just said that's when they start noticing paranormal things happen. Now, there's probably a difference on it could have been haunted before. It
Mm,
could have been haunted before, and they just never noticed, or it finally started getting active after.
mm-hmm.
Because she did treat that doll like her best friend, so maybe that doll came to think of her as the best friend. So the
Yeah.
doll maybe is not happy that her friend is gone and she's not with her friend in the afterlife. I don't know. It's never actually said they believe it was her soul in it or not.
Yeah, I would have to talk to the doll to find that out. Um, I would have to have a,
Yeah, I would love to come face to face with it. And
yeah,
Irene and I were talking about one day
going,
visiting this doll.
yeah, actually going there and just taking a little trip. It's a little ways out of our way. I
It's up
mean,
so where she is at now, it's up north in Hokkaido.
Hokkaido, yeah,
Hokkaido? Yeah, I can never.
another little island north from us. It's
Yeah, it's North Japan, so which is the opposite part of the country for
yeah,
both of us.
yeah, and the thing is that that doll does grow teeth now, doesn't she?
Yeah, so going into it more, they said the family said 20 years later, the family was moving to a different prefecture in Japan. And the family worried that if they took the doll with them, that they fear that her magic would disappear if they moved the doll further from her grave.
Hmm.
So what the family did was they gave it to a nearby temple. So yeah, nearby monk's temple to kind
Hmm.
of watch for her. And you can go to this temple, like we're saying, it's up north. You can go up there to this day and visit her. They still have her on display.
Hmm.
So that's what they did. They put the doll on display. It's just a nearby monk's temple because like the family was saying, they're worried what happens if they move this doll further away from their child's grave. The
It,
temple has already had heard countless stories. So the temple before, the reason why they took her in was they've heard countless stories from many people in town about this doll's magic, basically. So they were already curious and they were excited to start taking care of this doll, as they said. It'd be like coming to me and Irene and say, I have this haunted doll, we'd be excited to have it too.
more you than me.
They said the priest then actually did send a sample of the hair to a lab, and they did determine that this hair the doll was made out of was it was
You-
confirmed to be of a real human child's hair. I They don't know. I mean, they don't know whose hair, but it's a real. They believe it's from a real child.
yeah,
So the weird thing is they never actually said where the son bought this doll. They think it's from like he was just kind of like shopping and saw like the doll on the side and bought it. So if it was a real doll, or if it was like not a real doll, but a second hand, that was
hmm,
never confirmed because it's 1918. So I think he's just like passing by in a bazaar or whatever you call it here in Japan, and he just It's like, oh, what a pretty doll, bought it. Could have been belonged to someone else before. There's no history of this doll before.
And that's like anything else in this country. If you want to find history on anything, good luck in finding, because you'll never
You
find.
can't. No, you'll never find history in a lot of things here. It's deleted.
Yeah,
It's deleted and not talked about.
yeah. Like
There's been
right, it's all buried and it's never. It'll be never mentioned. It'll be never talked about. Stuff like that happens in this country a lot.
there's
Unless
yeah.
it's a sword, unless it's a Japanese sword, a samurai sword, it would be noted because it's part of it's part of an antique, so it would be noted in the history book about it because it would belong to a certain clan or family. That's the only thing that would be notarized. Other than that, not with that kind of stuff. No,
There's
especially with
been there's
dolls.
been there's been professional research teams from TV shows on now that cannot find what they need to history wise in Japan because they've reached out to us and say, is there any secret information you guys can find out? Do you have any other sources maybe that we don't? I mean, like it's covered and not there, man. So unfortunately, there's not any secret, resources that we can have to prove history or come up with more history than you guys can, unfortunately.
Um, property too. Property's the same way. Um, um, you can't find the history of a property either in this country. It's just not talked about, right? I tried to find out the property where I used to live, and it was pretty haunted. It is, and I reached out, and everyone else reached out. And a lot of people reached out to um the people who take care of the properties, like the real estate agent. Yeah, they don't know anything, right? So yeah, good luck in finding that out too, because you'll never find anything, right? And as time goes by, taxes in Japan for property taxes in Japan have doubled the amount. So yeah, I mean, the people who own these haunted areas, haunted properties, are having forced to sell them off to be developed into other things now. So yeah, they know it's haunted. People who own the property know it's haunted, but yeah, they're being developed into apartment buildings and what are shopping centers and stuff like that. So guess what? Yeah, like this. Ooh, I wonder why we see this thing getting out of our wall. And I go, yeah. And
Yeah,
there's a lot of cases where a lot of actors and actresses buy this expensive apartment. This oh, they're really they say, oh, you know what? I see a samurai warrior with half drawn, ordered from here up. He's walking through my walls, and I go, yeah. You wonder why, right? And it's pretty sad because you can't keep the property from going into developer's hand because you know it's haunted. But yeah, you have no choice in the matter, right? I mean, we live in a small country, and Amanda will tell you that land is really precious here. And
that's also why we don't. This is why in Japan, due to the lack of land, this is why fruits and vegetables cost an arm and a leg to purchase. I mean, Irene can tell you go and you buy fruits and vegetables, and unfortunately, it's just a lot. It is really pricey to buy. There's also not a lot of farms with animals, because definitely that's also why a lot of people like, why don't you eat turkey? And it's like, we don't have turkeys here. We don't have a lot of the meats locally here, I mean, besides the fact that Japanese ovens are smaller, are typically either Japanese people don't, most of them don't actually have an oven, but the ones that do have ovens they're a lot smaller. Like I made sure I got an apartment with a Japanese oven. I can only fit a 4-pan muffin tin in there, just kind of put perspective on the side. Not a
Yeah,
6. 6 will not fit. It
yeah,
has to be like 4. And
yeah,
it's just, yeah, they're usually that small. But
yeah.
yeah, there's just not a lot of,
You're cramped for space.
yeah.
My house is pretty big for the size in Tokyo. Um, because my house goes right back to the back of the property. Yeah, and everything here is cramped and very expensive, and yeah, to even own one, you have to have a lot of clout and like vegetables and fruits and everything like that. Where she is, it may be cheaper than where I am to buy anything, right? Where I am, it's like, yeah, I mean, who pays $4 for 4 carrots, right? You're lucky if you get 3 carrots in it for $4, and it's just really, you have to watch your wallet all times when you
Yeah.
buy a country. And it's, if you think about that, you never survive, but you really don't think about it. We just do it, right?
Yeah.
It's a matter of survival in this country, actually. And
One of the, to save room on space, there is two in this is why I have anxiety driving in Japan, is there's two-way roads that are barely big enough for one vehicle.
Mhm.
And this is why I have such, yeah, this is why I have such anxiety driving, because I still myself do not know what to do when I'm on one of those roads that's barely big enough for my car. Another car is coming. There's not any room on the side to kind of get over. I still to this day I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do when when I run into a vehicle.
Yeah, you should try it when it comes to here.
Yeah,
Tokyo's.
I don't know what. Luckily, I've gotten lucky, and the person going another way has went after I finally got through that, because I'm just like, look at the sides. There's nowhere even for you to pull off to the side for you to let that other car go. Same thing with them, and I'm just like, what do you do in that situation?
You wondering how they survive, right?
Yeah, and I'm actually taking pictures of roads in Japan, saying, "Look, you can see it's this is barely big enough for my vehicle, but it's actually a two-way."
Yeah, it's especially when you go up the mountain, like yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I've done that because I'm just
like there's one road that goes this way, and there's one road that goes the way that you're going, and that's it. And then you have this side is the mountain, and that side is the cliff.
yeah, and you're like, I can't get over. I wish I can.
And the cliff, there's hardly a guardrail, right? It's like really, yeah, it's like really this short guardrail, and then you go look over, you go, ooh, okay, there's the gully. Like you think, oh my god, right? And
Yeah,
you wonder how people, but they do,
yeah.
they do. They go up the mountain all the time. And they go all the way down the mountain all the time. Yeah, it's just their way of life, right?
I'm so used to here driving very sleep stove.
Yeah, and forget about when it snows, right? Yeah,
Yeah, there's even taxi drivers in Japan have issues driving in winter, but it's all because it's so hilly, and it's not just a gradual hill. Unfortunately, it's a steep slope trying to drive up and down, to the point where when you get to those steep slopes, and Irene can tell you, you cannot hesitate or hesitate even for a second, because your car will not make it up that hill if you hesitate.
and it's winding a lot of them is winding roads all the way down the mountain, right? You go all the way
Yeah.
up, and it's really steep going all the way up, and it's really fast going all the way down too. You like,
That's like driving somewhere 2 miles away from me takes 15 minutes. And I know that sounds weird. How does 2 miles take 15 minutes? I'm like, it's because it's such a windy road to
hmm
actually get there. I mean, yeah, straight. According to you look up on the maps, it's like 2 miles, but it's so much.
yeah, and you got to be careful because they've got these creatures that come out of the forest too. They
Yes,
got raccoon dogs that come out of the forest and everything else, right?
Tanuki. I remember the first time we saw a Tanuki. We
hmm
didn't know what it was at first. We had to Google it because we saw a Tanuki and we are just it. If you've never seen a Tanuki, the face does look like a raccoon, but it also has like the body of a dog. That's why it's called a raccoon dog.
Yeah,
So and it's a lot bigger than a raccoon because at first
and
there's also
they eat whatever, right? They'll eat meat, they'll eat anything, right?
yeah they're a lot bigger.
Yeah,
And we also have wild boars too that you gotta watch out for. Those things are not
they're not
they're
they're
not shy.
they're not nasty, and they won't give 2 seconds to gore you, right? So they're really a problem in this country.
Yeah.
That's why they have boar hot pots. that's their specialty, and they're a real problem. That's true. Um, uh, there's a lot of weird things. If you don't find one of them, you'll find a a spirit in the forest, right?
Yeah.
So you don't
We'll
go
have
in
to
the,
cover well, we're gonna have to cover that one day, spirits and forests, because there's a good number of them too here.
especially at nighttime. Yeah,
Yeah. I can say I've from experience, I've experienced those.
yeah.
From
They don't
experience, I ran into them, so I can't definitely.
they don't really come out and bother you. It depends. If you're a woman, they don't really bother you. If you're a man, well, that's another story, right? They
Is
seem
there
to,
a difference with them with men and women? I don't
yeah.
know. I just feel like the spirits here are less shy than back in America. Because spirits here, they'll just even if they're wandering by, be like, "I'm here. I'm leaving. Bye," and it's just yeah,
Well, have you ever heard of a scorned woman, right? So a lot of them are women who died of whatever a long time ago, whether it's something bad happened to her, or whether something bad happened to them, or somebody bad who did something to them. It has to do with a lot of that, right? Uh, And the scorned woman, right? So they'll go after men. Like, listen, if you're a man, don't go in the forest alone, right?
yeah.
It's crazy, but yeah. I mean, we're lucky we're women. We don't have to worry about that. But yeah, um, there's a lot of places that are jealous women spirits and crazy stuff like that happens, and men who disappear and there's no trace of them. There's no body and stuff like that happens in the forest. So that's why you have to be very careful. That's why a lot of them wear bells on them, right? Around their necks.
Oh,
That's
really?
yeah. That's not just for the to let them know that they're there, and the other part is to prevent the bears from coming out. So they wear bells around their necks, chase away the bears. Yeah. Um.
I've seen a wild monkey out there, just up north of where I live, and you gotta be careful of the monkeys because they will pickpocket you.
Mm-hmm.
They'll act friendly and they'll act like they want to be on you, but They're pickpocketers.
They're aggressive too. They'll take anything away from you. If you go to the grocery store and you bring home a bag, you have to walk up a mountain. They'll steal that from you. They're
Had a monkey jump on me, but it's trying to take everything from my pockets. I'm just holding my pockets like, no.
and they'll scratch you too. You gotta be careful. They're not nice, you know.
So going back to the Okiku doll,
Mm-hmm.
what's interesting about her, if you actually look her up, you'll find most articles about her will say that she is scarier than Chucky. And the reason for this is because she visits dreams. The first time she visited a dream, it was from the priest of the priest of the temple that she was at. And according to the priest, when she visited him in a dream, she asked for a haircut. So they made it part of her they made haircuts part of her
Routine.
ongoing care. Yeah. That's one thing they do when they take care of her. Now they just added that. I don't know how often they cut her hair, but they said that's the first time it is. And then people who visited her after that claim that she has visited them in their dreams. No one is saying what she does in their dreams. I don't know because I can't tell you if it's just saying hi or if it's violent. No one is. They're just saying they saw her in dreams after visiting her.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because she has evolved.
She's evolving, yes.
She becomes something where they even said she grows fingernails too, doesn't she?
Yes, that's actually also part of her care is her haircut, and I also forgot that she wants a haircut and her nails to be trimmed, which is so weird that she's still growing. Her hair and nails are still growing.
Yeah.
But what's also interesting now is after 20 years of being in that temple, yeah, it's been over 20 years, obviously, since they've had her, but what they find weird is so her head is made out of porcelain, like most dolls here, they're made out of porcelain. But it's weird because her mouth was originally closed, but now they're finding out that her mouth is slowly opening more and more, and they're starting to find from the porcelain gums is they're seeing baby teeth is coming out of them. Like they don't see anything, and then they're checking up on her. All of a sudden, she's just like a child having teeth come out of the gums, and they can't explain it because she's a porcelain doll. How is she all of a sudden? And they say it looks like human teeth.
Yeah.
So where are they? I mean, how are they coming out of the gums? Because more and more, she's getting more of a mouthful of teeth. It was originally no teeth when they saw her, but now she's starting to form like teeth coming out like a child. They said think of that way. Yeah, it is crazy, Josh. They can't explain it. It's a porcelain head, and all of a sudden it just baby teeth are coming out.
Like usually those dolls usually have a closed mouth, okay?
Yeah.
But this one, her mouth is opening up, right? And they're coming down. Like usually Japanese dolls don't have teeth. They don't. They don't. They just have a mouth painted red mouth.
That's how she was at first. So that's also why they can't explain all of a sudden how this mouth is opening and why it's all of a sudden somehow forming and growing teeth in it.
It'd be amazing to find out if she blinks also. If her eyes does this. I mean,
that has not been reported, but maybe, I mean, it could be one of the things, like we said, we don't know what happens at night. She is encased there in the temple. The only person who really is able to touch her is, I believe, the monks or the priest of that temple.
Yeah. And they use the monks usually, it's usually a Buddhist temple because the Buddhist, when you die, you become Buddha. You become a god. So that's why they have it in a Buddhist temple, because they deal with the dead, mostly. Um, so that's why it's in a Buddhist temple, and that's why we have Buddhist priests, because they will chant prayers to it. They will try to calm the soul of whatever is happening. I bet they do chant prayers to it too. I bet you they do that. I'm 100% sure of that one, because anything that has a soul in it would be prayed, and they would have to calm the soul of the dead, and I bet you they do that. Um, and I bet you they have long scrolls of prayers for the dead. There's always special prayers for special events or special problems, or whatever may happen. They would chant prayers to the soul, hoping that it would move on, but a lot of times it doesn't, right? So yeah.
And you said certain Buddhist temples in Japan is where people give their haunted dolls to. So this is probably one of those things where they probably specialize in haunted dolls too.
Yeah, it's like the islands of the dolls in Mexico, right? They give, except this place would be a Buddhist temple that you would take your haunted doll to be cared for by the Buddhist temple, the priests in the temple, to look after them. Um, Especially if your child did die. Yeah, you wouldn't leave that article in the home. You'd take it to the Buddhist temple. Um,
Is it, you know, if all Buddhist temples are able to take dolls, or is it just certain ones that are able to take and
one,
deal with haunted
one
dolls?
certain ones, I think a lot of people do Google it and do bring it there. So if they have bigger dolls, and they will bring it there, and they will take it to them, or they will leave it there for the and not say anything too. That happens also.
They're probably used to it though, and they see the doll like we already we
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, do you know why the Buddha is good luck?
Uh, Buddha is your soul. You, um, um, when you die after so many days, I forgot, you become a god, and so you resurrect as a god. So it's like you are an angel, almost, like, right? You would take care of the living. You'd watch over the living like an angel. Um, um, if you pray to, like, your relative who has died so many days afterwards, they become a god, and they become a protector. Um, they watch over the living. Um, you feed. That's why you feed the dead on certain times of the year, or every day. You'd have a little bowl of rice, some water, and always have flowers for them. When you wake up, you give them a fresh bowl of rice, give uh burn incense, and give them fresh flowers. Like, it's an everyday ritual thing for them. And at certain times of the year, at New Year's, you give them some New Year's dinner, so you always would have to feed them because they get hungry.
That is always crazy.
Yeah.
It's always crazy to hear here. Halloween, so the most haunted the most haunt the most haunted month here in Japan is not October, it is July.
Just like my birthday, it depends where Amanda is. It's August the 25th, 26th, and 27th, with all the dead coming home because they're hungry. So you would clean the graves at midnight, right? You carry a lantern with a candle in it. You go and bring usually the cemeteries usually have fresh water, or you can. They have fresh running tap water, so you scrub the headstone, and you burn incense. You bring new flowers, and you feed them sticky rice. Yeah.
Yeah, it is different here. It's definitely different here in so much the veil is thin on Halloween. It usually is, but not here. Like she was saying, for in her part of Japan, it's July would be the most haunted time of year. For me, it'd be August.
Yeah.
For when the veil would be probably thinner here.
Yeah. And the it's my son hates it because he hates it. He hates this time of the year. He says, "Oh, because when you go outside, you get yeah, you can feel their energy coming home, right?
I
And
have so many migraines that I felt like I lived on migraine pills, and it didn't help.
yeah, like that's why I don't like going outside. Like I say, nope, you can't come near me. Get out of here. But yeah, and it just happens to be on my birthday, July 16th. And you go, ha, 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 ha. Thanks a lot, right? But it's the most creepiest month, and it's right after the rainy season too. And we have monsoon season. It's like 2 weeks of rain before
Mhm.
hot summer comes, and yeah, it's the most craziest time of the year. And but nobody really thinks about being haunted, right? So they would go to the grave at midnight. They clean them. They do everything they would have to on their relatives' graves, and yeah, they come home and said, "Okay, we did a good job." They go to sleep and they think nothing of it. I
Yeah, if you have a gift in the paranormal, this is why you hate the time of years when the energy is the most out.
It's heavy. It's in the air. It's thick. You feel it. It just yeah, I don't like it. That's why I stay home a lot. I don't go out. Um, I don't know about other people, but yeah. But when you bring when you let the dead relatives in, you have to chase them away afterwards. So okay, you can't stay here. You gotta go. You gotta go. Bye bye. You gotta tell them to leave too. So yeah,
Oh,
that's.
yeah.
Uh, and I celebrate every year too. So it's my thing that I offer to my dead relatives too.
Now, are all Buddhist temples haunted, or is it just some of them? Like we already know some temples here are haunted. Is it majority of them, or just certain ones?
Certain ones, certain old ones too. Like certain shrines are
Yeah,
haunted. Yeah. Um, Certain ones that you don't go alone or you don't go at nighttime. Yeah. They do possess certain types of an entity, as you would think of whatever it is that. Yeah, there's certain ones that you can't go alone, and they're all over YouTube too. Um, if you've seen a lot of YouTube channels, a lot of young people go there and they post it on YouTube. I mean, you can watch it, but just be careful, right? That's why I don't post it in my group because they're
yeah,
not cleansed in a way, and they will come out and they will come after you if you're not careful. So I always say make sure that you have you're closely guarded. Make sure you have your crystals with you. Make sure you're grounded properly. And yeah, once you see it, make sure you get rid of it, right? So there are certain really enthusiasts that go to haunted areas and they will post it on YouTube. Just be careful, or TikTok. Just be careful of what you watch in this country because it's not always good.
yeah, definitely.
And people don't realize it. I can watch it. Yeah, it doesn't bother me. Yeah. No, I mean, no. I mean, spirits are a little bit different. They can be jealous. They can be nasty. They can come and haunt you. They can come and kill you. Right. So yeah, always be careful. And if you're an empath, more the reason to be careful. Right.
Right. So definitely, this is our time for today.
Yeah.
Next week, with it being Easter weekend,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we're gonna have a pre-recorded show or if we're going to be live. It's just I'm not 100% sure because we only have like an hour on Saturday, so we'll discuss and find out what we're gonna do from then. But like as I was saying earlier in this show, please find Spooky Japan Podcast, the page, because that's where we go live randomly throughout the week with guests. So
Yeah.
we definitely go and watch that so that we can, you can watch it with our guests, ask them any questions. We're still scheduling guests, so if you want to be a guest on our show, send the page a message or even email us at spookyjapanpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love
And
to have anyone in the paranormal on the
you-
show. Just, kind of introduce yourself, who you are, what you do in the paranormal. Let us know. Usually you have some time available so we can get you scheduled. But like I said, we go live on that page with our guests. So this way we can have some time to really talk to them. It's also more at their convenient schedule because we know here in Japan we're in a different time zone than everyone else. So we try to schedule them more for when they're available too, so they feel comfortable too.
and be prepared to have popcorn with you, because a lot of our guests like to talk, and so do we, as you can tell.
Oh, we can talk. We can talk to them if they really allow us the time.
Yeah.
If
So
they really allow us the time, we will talk to them as long.
2 hours, even longer sometimes, right,
Yeah,
Amanda?
but definitely, like I said, that's also why we schedule on that page for the guests. So we're trying to also bring more awareness on that page, so
Mhm.
you can also see when we're more live. We're more live on that than anywhere else. This way you can watch that, join us on there, ask us more questions on there.
Yeah.
Definitely, and it's just a good time over there as well. We're
Yeah.
also trying to raise awareness, having a contest where and we gotta make the announcement later. I'm not 100% sure how much time we're gonna give people. But we're having a contest that whoever shares our page the most will win the crystal that Irene is currently holding. So definitely, yes, we'll have to figure out how much time the time limit, and you can win that crystal if you share this page the most. Because like I
Yeah.
said, we want people to join us over there. We go live over there all the time with special guests. And like going back to, if you want to be a special guest, please let us know. We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
And that's all for now. Thank you, everyone, and bye for now.
Bye.